Yeah.
What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 39, Island of the Idols, Episode 4, which is literally every super fan's worst nightmare. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa. And for this episode, Rachel and I have very different opinions on this episode. So this will be a fun ride.
Yo, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it's one of the best episode of the season so far. I was thoroughly having a great time the entire 42 minutes.
I, as soon as Nora came onto the screen, it was like I dissolved into a puddle of goo. Like watching her speak gives me so much secondhand embarrassment that I just like, I can't. I can't. She's such a bad liar, and like the fact that she ever thought she could convince her tribe to like make her the caller was like, what are you smoking, Nora?
Yo, okay, so we're opposite. I enjoyed watching Nora. She's just such a hot mess that it's fun. She's fun to watch, I feel like, on the TV. But we will get to Nora and the Island of the Idols. But first, we are going to start with the Chelsea vote out because that is the hot take of the evening. At the start of the episode, we see that Dean and Chelsea, people notice that they are super close, sleeping together, talky, flirty, whatever. And then Dean gets his second confessional of the season. And I was like, oh, 5 minutes in and Dean gets a confessional. He is so going home tonight.
I was. We've talked before about this pattern of girls always being the one voted out
Mm,
in a power couple. So as soon as people were like, Dean and Chelsea are tight, I was like, guess Chelsea's going home. Especially because the name they talk about at the beginning of the episode as who they'd like to vote out is never the name that ends up getting voted out at the end. Like, it just isn't the way things happen. So when people started talking about, like, maybe we should get rid of Dean near the beginning of the episode, I was like, sayonara, Chelsea. So
yeah, I mean, for me, I did not think it was predictable. I just don't necessarily see in what world voting out Chelsea is a smart move for them going into where they're thinking there's going to be a tribe swap in the near future. They even mentioned it last week, and any fan of Survivor like Chelsea would know that a tribe swap is probably going to happen after 2 votes or even 4 votes. So you're thinking you're going into like a tribe swap or something like that next time, and you're going to leave Karishma in there and then vote out someone who is an ally. I would not have voted out Chelsea at this point in time.
I think what Missy seemed to be saying about the vote at that point was they wanted it to be a vote that everyone in their alliance could agree on, and not everyone in their alliance could agree on Karishma, and not everyone in their alliance could agree on Dean, but somehow everyone could agree on Kelsey or Chelsea. Whew, you can tell my brain. Everyone could agree on Chelsea. So in terms of making their alliance stronger, maybe it worked. I'm not entirely sure if that's true because they did vote out someone in their alliance, but that's the impression of the rationale that I got.
Yeah, which is interesting. Even last week with the Vince vote, we were like, oh, that's interesting, but it makes sense if you're trying to appease Dean and Aaron. You want to vote out Vince because everyone can agree on it, even though Vince is like sort of in your female alliance, sort of not. Which, I mean, if you rationalize it like that, like, sure, yeah, you want to go into a tribe swap with the most people not being mad at you. But then going into this vote, you are pissing off Dean versus, like, I feel like if you went the route of Karishma, which is probably the smarter thing because everyone realizes that Karishma is going to flip at the first like tip of her hat when she gets into a tribe swap situation next week. Like, you're pissing off Dean. Dean won't want to work with you. And then Karishma is going to flip. So you're going in already down in the numbers 9-7, and then you have like a 5 only. And it could be 3 groups of 5, and then one person goes to exile, or 2 groups of 8. And like, I don't know, I just think it seems very, very risky to alienate someone, especially after last week, thinking that they voted out Vince, to not alienate them.
Yeah. I think Missy was thinking that Karishma would be a bit more gullible than maybe she is. Like, she's considering Karishma as like her second vote, she said throughout the episode. So I think that might be where Missy is coming from. And since Missy has so much sway in that alliance, I guess that's how they got to the point where Karishma became a no-go.
Yeah, it's interesting because Missy mentions the 3 as sorority sisters at the top of the episode. Aaron mentions that he wants Dean gone. Elizabeth, she has a lot of social capital. She says no to voting Dean out. She saved Tom last time by saying no to the Tom vote. And I think it's just really interesting how we saw this episode, different factions kept going to Elizabeth and semi-Elaine also, but more so Elizabeth, as like, this is the person that we're telling the information to. We need Elizabeth and Elaine to vote our way. And so I think like Elizabeth is in a really good spot, and everyone wants to like go and tell her the information.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when Elizabeth goes to talk to Aaron about being like, Dean is a no-go, she says Elaine is against it. And I think that's also a really smart like social move, because that means Elizabeth's not the one rocking the boat. She's not the one being like, no, that plan won't work. But she still gets her agenda pushed through because she didn't want Dean voted out. So she gets kind of the best of both worlds, because she gets not to have people annoyed because like Elizabeth ruined the plan, but she also gets what she wants. So I think Elizabeth is definitely going to be a player to keep watching as we move forward.
No, yeah, I noticed that too. Like, she initially was like, no way, I don't want to vote Dean out. But she agreed with Missy and Aaron. And then she, like blamed it on Elaine as like, this plan is not going to work. So I thought that was interesting as well. And then Missy throws out Chelsea's name because they want to keep the boys as shields, which I don't know. This was sort of wild because with this episode, I feel like Missy is going to take a lot of the heat next episode. In the preview, we see Dean and Missy sort of fighting. Like, yeah, Dean, I voted out your girlfriend. Like, that is going to cause tension potentially for Missy and Dean. But maybe for Aaron, it's a good move because he just moved up the totem pole as like Missy's right-hand person, and then you don't have the sorority sister threesome in the game anymore. And so maybe it's a good move for Aaron, but I feel like Missy sort of maybe put herself out there too early.
Yeah, I think next week will definitely determine whether or not this was a good move for Missy. Because I could easily see, like, if her whole thing with, oh, Karishma is my second vote doesn't pan out, then she's really going to be hurting.
Yeah, I wonder if Missy actually pulled in Karishma as like a third in the Karishma, Missy, Aaron trio threesome. If that works out, then like, yeah, perfect. Voting Chelsea out. Chelsea's smart and will play the game actually. And you keep Karishma around, who like is sort of not that good at playing the game. And then like that would be amazing for Missy and Aaron. But I think like probably the people in the best spot would be like Elizabeth, who Dean wouldn't necessarily be mad at Elizabeth, Tom, and Elaine. I feel like next week we'll see he's probably going to want to flip on Missy and Aaron because you'll probably view those two as the leaders of the last Chelsea vote.
And I think Elizabeth and Elaine especially have a great case to make to Dean, because they can be like, listen, dude, it was either you or Chelsea. We kept you alive. So he can't really be mad at them for that. So
yeah. And then throwing Aaron and Missy under the bus if it comes to it. And I feel like it's risky. I think Tribal Council, just voting Chelsea out, I think we'll see next week with the tribe swap, but it's a lot of risk, I feel like, and potentially not much reward because I feel like I personally would want Karishma to go. That's the most logical thing, but it seems like these people are very going for the blind sides. The first 4 votes have literally been blind sides this season, and probably honestly could be people that would have all made the merge in other seasons because they're just, I think at least some of the first 4 could have been like really, really good at the game had they not been voted out.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's interesting when like the threats get voted out, but then it means that especially like at the beginning of the merge, it's kind of like not as interesting because you have a lot of like cannon fodder that didn't end up getting voted out super early, like maybe they should have to keep the game more interesting. So,
Which I feel like low key, we saw it a little bit last season with Edge of Extinction. It could just be that the editing wasn't necessarily all that fair, and so we didn't see a lot of the tribe that wasn't losing come merge. But like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like next week I am very, very interested to see how this plays out because I don't know. I just don't think it's the right time to vote Chelsea out. And the tribe must have been really good at either faking it to keep Dean and Chelsea super calm, or like they mentioned at Tribal, and I think Chelsea mentioned in post game interviews, like this vote happened really, really late and they didn't have time to do anything about it. Like it was on the way to Tribal kind of thing.
yeah, and like from what was said about it, I feel like it was kind of a really, really late vote because Elena was like, Missy's out here changing things like at the last minute. So, yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, if you're Chelsea, you wouldn't expect this from what we've seen. Like the whole sorority sisters, they're all seemingly close, the women's alliance, and then it gets broken up 3 times when you've gone to tribal. So I mean, you can't necessarily falter, I feel like, for not playing the idol, especially this early. Everyone wants to keep it, but then I think it's very interesting how we have seen Vince now and then Chelsea both go home with idols in their pocket. Vince, his only lasted like 2 or 3 tribal councils or whatever, probably should have played it. Chelsea, I think you can't necessarily falter because her idol lasts the whole game. Like if she didn't think she was going home, like a normal person probably wouldn't think they were under fire because she seemed like she had strong bonds with people. Like, I don't think you can give her heat for that.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things though where I wish Chelsea would have at least said like there's a chance because of my relationship with Dean that I would be voted out. Like you can't you can't be a super fan of Survivor and think that a showmance is going to be a good idea for you. Like you can't be a super fan of Survivor and get into something that some could construe as a showmance or a power couple and not be like, "Huh, maybe I'll be in trouble because of this."
Yeah, I guess it's interesting because at the beginning of the episode, we see Dean talk about, oh, Chelsea's so cute. And then Chelsea is like, yeah, I'm not here for a showmance. And then, like you mentioned earlier, it is always interesting why the women in the showmance get voted out before the man. So, like we've seen with like Cole and Jessica, Figgy, Taylor, what those are some of the most recent ones where like the girl always gets voted out first. But yeah.
Yeah. I think because Robin Amber was like the OG showmance and Amber won the game, people are like, the girl doesn't always get voted out, but it's like Robin Amber was forever ago now. So
Yeah, but it was funny to see Chelsea get voted out with an idol. Low key, I wanted to see that happen because that's always the funnier TV for gameplay.
it's
Maybe not
also
the best
good because
move.
it keeps idols like out of the game. Like we've talked before about how having too many idols is like, yeah. So it's nice because no
So,
one actually, I think, even knew Chelsea had that idol. I don't think we were ever shown her showing it to anyone. So no one's going to be
yeah.
looking for the idol because Chelsea had it and it's back in the game now.
Yeah, so then it's also the thing. If you told someone you had the idol, they would be more wary about voting for you because you can always use it as a threat, whether it's credible or not. Like, oh, I'm going to use it at tribal or not. And people can try to flush it, but you still can get further in the game by using it as a non-credible threat, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So, tribal council, I was low-key annoyed. Karishma, all she does, I feel like, is complain about not wanting to go home. She calls the whole tribe like pansies or something, and she's like, they're not playing the game, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, you know you're at the bottom, you know you got votes last time, and you're probably going to get votes this time. And then maybe it's the editing, but we don't see her do anything about it. All she does is complain about not wanting to go home, and then she gets saved twice. Like, she has no social capital in the game, and I just want to see if she can learn how to play this game, because all she does is complain about not wanting to go home. Like, if you don't want to go home, try to make a blindside, try to do something about it, talk to people. Maybe we're just not seeing it on the episode, but like, I'm like, girl, what are you doing?
It seems like from the editing that the only reason she's still around is because Missy wants to use her. And like, that's not a super great, like, she is making herself an ideal goat.
No, like 100%. I don't think, even if she does learn how to play the game, I don't think she has any social capital to like use. Similar to Nora, like, you want to bring Karishma and Nora to Final 3 because they have no social capital. They would not sway a jury any which way. And so maybe smart to keep Karishma around a little early, I feel like, to vote out an ally in Chelsea, but like, I want to see Karishma grow. I do not want to see her continuously complain that her tribe is a bunch of pansies because they're not making moves when they clearly are making moves and doing laps around you strategically.
Yeah, she either needs to grow or she needs to go.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, she's gotten 2 tries. Her life has been saved 2 times. If she does not play the game next week, I'm going to be sort of very, very annoyed. Vote her out if she's not willing to play the game and make a move. Don't just complain that you're on the chopping block. Try to do something about it.
Yeah.
So, good or bad move, I think we'll have to see next time. Karishma hopefully is going to flip like she says, and maybe she will learn how to play the game, or maybe she'll continue to keep doing what she's doing. Who knows? But I feel like purple is way more cohesive seeming. Orange right now, it just seems like they are way all over the place. If they split into smaller tribes of like 5, they're going to probably be the minority in every one of those tribes. And then you for sure know if it's 3-2 in each of those, like, the 2 at the bottom are going to flip on each other and try to throw the other one under the bus, which makes it better for purple. I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, orange is just too all over the place, especially going into a tribe swap with lesser numbers.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hoping that it won't just be purple picking off orange because that would be lame, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with that tribe swap.
Yeah, I feel like purple has a lot more of the potential winners on the tribe right now from orange. I can really only see Missy or Elizabeth. The other ones I really cannot see winning the game, so I feel like purple is more interesting to watch as well. But yeah, I don't know. I just think voting out Chelsea right now, you alienate Dean and then you lose an ally, and Karishma is doing whatever the hell she does. And so if you get swapped if you're like, yeah, it's a hot mess on the orange tribe, and they're going to swap into the minority probably.
Yeah, probably. So we'll see how that plays out. I think purple, again, I think we saw more of purple than expected, given that they didn't go to tribal council this episode, but I feel like that was mostly just because of Nora going to the island of the idols and then Jamal finding his idol. So
yeah, so from purple we see Jamal find an idol. I thought this was interesting because Jamal and Jason, they both stay back on the island while the other people go out like boating, fishing. And then they both sort of let the other roam around alone, which I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, you're both under the assumption that the other is looking for the idol, but then I also feel like you'd want to low key keep tabs on the other person because, like, you just never want someone to go alone, especially when like literally no one is watching. And so I thought that was interesting that we didn't necessarily see them watching one another. And then Jamal finds an idol.
I think it's one of those things where they knew the other wasn't watching, and so it's kind of like, you can do your thing as long as you let me do mine. So it's like, yeah, it would be bad for them if they didn't find the idol, but for Jamal, it was a good thing to let Jason be because it meant that he could have his idol and no one knows about it. Like Jamal knows that he could potentially have it, and or Jason knows that Jamal could potentially have an idol, but there's nothing confirmed. So I think, eh, I still don't think that this like redeems Jamal though. Like there was one like confessional, he literally ended with like an evil villain laugh, and I was like, yikes. I don't think like him having the idol is good for him, but I don't think it's gonna do anything to redeem him from like all the negativity surrounding the vote where who was it? Molly got voted off.
No, I think Jamal finding the idol is probably one of the better things to happen in terms of like quality of television that we're going to see because I think you are right. Jamal is still in sort of the crapper from last week and the Molly vote out. People are still targeting him as someone who is sketchy, scheming, playing too hard. And so Jamal finding an idol, like I thought it was cool. Like, yeah, this dude is here to play. He realizes he's on the chopping block and he's willing to do something about it. Versus Karishma is not willing to do anything about being on the bottom. So I was like, okay, good for Jamal. I appreciate seeing that. Like, it makes it for more interesting TV because he is on the bottom. And if he plays the idol correctly and is able to idol someone out next week or in the future, if he still is in hot water, then I think he can never really redeem himself from being a sketchy person, but like he can last a little bit longer in the game. But yeah, I feel like Jack has gotten that target off his back as like, yo, surfer bro, I'm so goofy. But Jamal has been more of like the target out of the two.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things too where like, yeah, everything you said about Jamal, it's better TV. And I'm interested to see what happens with him after the tribe swap because he's one of the purple people I could see flipping. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. In the tribe swap, it's interesting. So, Island of the Idols, last week we were saying that, or just in the past, we were saying how we want more strategy with the Island of the Idols pick. Don't just make it out of the bag and make it random. Let's put some strategy into it. So, I thought this was a very funny scene on the purple where they were like, okay, who wants to go? And then we get all of these little clips of everyone saying, like, yeah, no, that's stupid. I don't want to go. Like, Jason's clip was so funny when he did like the fake accent of his mom. I was like, oh, this is so cute. I liked that scene.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because it kind of shows also Nora's like social ineptness when she's like, I'll go. So, I think
Yeah.
Kelly's thing about knowing that whoever was going to go would blow up her game was interesting because if I was Kelly, I would be like, I can go again since I already know what's happening and I know like where all the food is and stuff. It won't be that bad for me. So I'm kind of, I think Kelly should have at least like tried to maybe be the one to go so that there wasn't a potential of someone blowing up her game, but
Yeah, I was glad Kelly said that choosing out of the bag would be a cop out. I think this whole scenario is interesting because, like, yeah, sure. On one hand, you don't want to go because you don't want the target on your back. This tribe doesn't know that Vince was the one who went to Island of the Idols and then was voted out right after. But, like, Kelly knows that the person that goes has the opportunity to win an advantage. And sure, going does give you a target on your back. And I don't think that you can ever freaking volunteer because then you'll look hella sketch. But yeah, like you're saying, if Kelly sort of said, like, I know what it's like, I can go live alone, and she sort of played that up, people could be like, oh yeah, like, let's send the same person again because no one else knows what it's like out there. They don't know that she could win an idol. What's she doing? Everything like that. The draw leaves it up to random. Unanimous is interesting because if someone like Jamal was like, yeah, I want to go, I don't think you would give a unanimous vote to someone that you want to vote out because they could get an advantage in the game. So it would have been very interesting if someone like on the bottom, like Jamal or Jack, volunteered. And then people were like, looking at each other like, oh, I don't think we should let them go.
Yeah. But Nora ends up being the one to go to the Island of the Idols, and
Yo, no, in any other season, someone volunteering, you would sort of push some pushback, I feel like. If any of those other people volunteered, Jason, I'd be like, ooh, little sketch. You probably want someone from your alliance to go, but they've only been to one tribal, so it's hard to solidify. And then you have like a wacko like Nora. And in this scenario only is the time where I think you can get a unanimous vote. Everyone else you'd have a little reservations for. Just someone so whack, you can't say no because she's like really whack.
plus, like, if you say no to Nora, you know she's gonna be whining about it all day, and just say yes to Nora, and bonus, it gets her out of your hair. So
Nora, I don't even think she knew who Boston Rob and Sandra were when she went up there.
she was like, "Of course I know who you guys are," but I was like,
A handsome man. Would you not be like, oh, that looks like Boston Rob?
I don't know. I personally don't think that the idols look a lot like Boston Rob or Sandra, but I don't know.
Yeah, the only true reaction is Vince crying. Then you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, why is she getting watermelon?
I think it's like they like to have something to like do while they're talking to the person. Like with Elizabeth, they had the fire material, so they had something in their hands. And with Kelly, I don't know. Maybe Boston Rob and Sandra just wanted watermelon, and so the producers were like, "Share it with Nora, and we'll give you watermelon."
Yo, maybe that's what they do in their free time for the rest of the 72 hours that they hang out each day. They grow some watermelons in the back.
Yeah, but like Boston Rob and Sandra are trying to talk to Nora about persuasion and all of the ways that they can persuade people, or she can persuade people. And there were like flashbacks to all the like amazing Survivor persuasion things about like the Black Widow Brigade persuading Eric to give up immunity, Sandra persuading Russell that Coach was after him, Rob persuading Lex to save Amber in the next vote out. And it's like, those were all like pretty sick moves. And then Nora's just like, yeah, I can persuade people.
This flashback, it was cool. Like, as a fan of the show, obviously Alyssa and I can recognize each of the scenarios happening. I was like, wait, am I watching season 40? What is happening? But then I feel like for the casual viewer, they're probably so confused. Like, two of the clips were from Cook Islands, and I'm not sure casual viewers know who Yule is. They probably know who Parvati is. She was in two of the clips. And then you have Boston Rob and Sandra. I was like, yo, the casuals are probably so confused.
Okay, the Eric scene where Eric gives up his immunity idol is like might be one of the most iconic moments of Survivor ever. So I feel like a casual fan might still know about it.
Yeah, the first one. I don't know. It was interesting. I enjoyed viewing it, but like I feel like sort of there is a time and place. It made the persuasion information better because otherwise I was like, wait, what do all of these different persuasion tactics mean? So I liked having the examples of it. But then I was like, if I wanted to see a top 10 greatest blind sides of Survivor, I would go watch Peridium's videos. Like, this is not season 40 yet. And poor Eric, he always gets the fucking short end of every stick.
Yeah. I love that blindside so much though, because I think like rewatching Fans versus Favorites, I was like, ah yes, this is Survivor. So it's great. It's great. But I thought it was really funny because Boston Rob and Sandra seem to have the same impression of Nora that like we have, which is that she's a little cuckoo. Like Sandra was like, she just doesn't think about anything. She doesn't know anything. And Rob's like, I think Nora's perceptive, but is her perception reality? And I was like, you tell them, Rob.
Yo, yeah, she jumped right on to what Rob was selling, literally cutting Rob off and then agreeing to try to become the caller to get an advantage that isn't necessarily all that good. I feel like it's to block someone's vote at tribal council. And right now, we've been seeing a lot of majority votes at tribal. And so maybe it's useful if you're going into a 5-5-5 split next week and then you can block a vote. Like that would be hella useful in a smaller tribe. But with 9 people, that's a lot of risk for not too much reward, I feel like, especially, which I was sort of confused about. Does she lose her vote the next time she goes to tribal? Or is it just, did she lose her vote this episode? Because then I feel like it's so hard to track because maybe in 3 episodes, that's when she's finally going to tribal. And then does she lose her vote then? Or is it just tonight? But
I think it has to be she loses her vote the next time she goes to tribal because it's like whatever advantage she gains would be gained the next time she goes to tribal. So
yeah, which I feel like that, if that's the case with the rules, it's sort of complicated because if she doesn't go to tribal until like the merge, say, and somehow her tribe keeps winning, like someone has to keep track of that.
I feel like it's not as difficult to keep track of, especially when you consider like how big of the production staff of Survivor is. So
Yeah. I just think, what do you think about giving advantages in the immunity challenge? Is that too much of an advantage?
because I feel like they didn't tell Nora everything about what was going to happen in the immunity challenge because they didn't tell her about the puzzle, and that ended up being what broke. Oof, I can speak English. Made or broke the challenge. So I think as long as they don't like give a roadmap of exactly what every element in the challenge is, it's fine. Especially because with the collar challenges, like you don't actually gain that much from practicing, I don't think. Because it's like, oh, can you listen to someone shouting? And then someone like giving you directions in camp is very different from someone having to shout from like their perch while the other team is also shouting with the pressure of an immunity challenge going on. So
Interesting. I need to turn my lights back on.
Rachel's lights
keep
are motion
talking.
sensor, and so when Rachel doesn't move for too long, they think that she's left the room. So that's why Rachel had to get up and turn on her lights.
Yeah, so Nora's lie,
Was
it was
bad.
interesting at first. I was like, okay, it's a rule. Maybe people are gullible enough. That's a first that like you're going to tell everyone like, okay, this is in the Survivor handbook. Y'all cannot double cross me. Okay, it makes sense. Maybe from someone with a little bit more social capital could pull it off and say like, yes, use the exact same lie. Yes, it's a rule. You can't go about it. Like if Tommy said, I need to be the caller, people probably wouldn't have as much pushback. It's just Nora. You would not make her the caller, even if she says like it's a rule.
And I think also she chose a bad way to phrase her lie because she was like, we have to pick my role now. And it's like, there's more than one role.
Yeah, or she was also saying, you need to pick my role now, vote on it, and then I can tell you what the challenge is. Sort of convoluted. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like if it were someone else who went to Island of the Idols with a little bit more social capital, I feel like Tommy could pull it off. Maybe Lauren, maybe Jason even could get themselves to be the caller position with some kind of other lie or make it up or something. They could have gotten it to happen. I think Nora, just like Boston Rob said, maybe like her perception of herself maybe isn't what the tribe thinks she is. And everyone was like, wait, why do you get to be the caller?
I think it's also one of those things where like what I don't understand is why Nora didn't like ask advice from Boston Rob and Sandra, because it's like they told her about each of the types, but they didn't like when they then gave her her challenge. If I were Nora, I would be like, "This is my plan. Does that sound like a plan that makes sense to you?" And if not, Boston Rob and Sandra might be able to be like, "Well, it might be a better strategy to use this type of plan." So
Yeah, or like, here's my lie. What do you think of it? And maybe you're not allowed to ask Boston Rob and Sandra for other advice outside of like whatever lesson that they're trying to teach you. But it just seems, I guess, I don't know. This whole thing was just really weird.
yeah, and I think like basically all of her tribe members immediately called her on the bowl. So
Yeah, they're like, F, no. And I think it was really good for Kelly that Nora just came back and sort of dug herself a really, really big, deep hole because Nora cannot come back and be like, oh, yeah, no. Actually, I picked 3 urns and then I got an advantage or whatever because she already made such a weird, convoluted lie that she can't actually like go back and throw Kelly under the bus now. So it's good for Kelly that Nora went because Kelly, we saw, was nervous that like the person who could go could blow up Kelly's game. And so it's good Nora went for Kelly's game because Nora
Nora could,
doesn't.
honest to God, tell the tribe the entire truth and be like, and Boston Rob and Sandra were there, and we ate watermelon together, and the tribe would just be like,
Yo, what drugs are you on?
yeah, like Nora could tell them the whole ass truth and they wouldn't buy it just because she's like such an unreliable person now. And like we've been saying, she has so little social capital. And I think the coup de grace in this is that Nora is the one to sit out of the immunity challenge. Not only is she not the caller, her tribe is like, you're too stupid to even be in this challenge at all.
Yo, that was honestly, after Chelsea being blindsided and watching her face, this was honestly probably the best part of the episode. Just when Jeff is like, who's sitting out? And they're like, Nora's sitting out. And this, I think,
Nora goes, are you guys sure?
this was so freaking smart of the rest of the tribe. I wish we got to see some clips of them talking about like, oh, Nora's whatever she came back with was so weird. Like, what is she thinking? I wish we saw some of that background information because they thought of the perfect plan to catch Nora in a lie. Because if they say, okay, we want to put Nora out, and Jeff is like, no, you voted her. It's a rule. She has to be the caller. Then you validate what Nora said and you know it's true. But because they could, after they voted, they could still sit Nora out, then they know Nora is full of bull. And I was like, oh, that is just so smart. I wish we saw some of the background thinking behind it.
Yeah. The immunity challenge itself, I thought the funniest thing was that they had to pour water on themselves in order to get the keys. Like, didn't really make a lot of sense, but it was fun to watch a bunch of people yell as they got wet.
I was glad that it's not like the typical hold big block puzzle pieces blindfold challenge because that's where everyone gets hurt. Spencer almost freaking broke his leg. And those blindfolded challenges are just so scary to watch. And it makes me nervous because, like, someone could literally get pulled from the game because of hurting themselves in that kind of challenge.
Yeah, the worst thing was that someone got a crotch shot, and that's like, okay.
Yeah,
Whatever.
that's just like, I'm still salty of Ross getting pulled from Australian Survivor because the freaking rope broke on him, and then he broke his leg. And I was like, what the heck? This is just so unfair. So
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting what Lauren said. Like, okay, Nora is digging her own grave. If Nora is the caller and we lose, she's an easy person to vote out. So I was like, okay, maybe on one hand, it's okay if Nora's the caller because even if you lose, like, you have an easy vote. But on the other hand, I feel like you never want to lose an immunity challenge in Survivor ever, because going to tribal council gives you the chance to be voted out. If you're not seeing Jeff, you have zero chance of going home. And so I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and it was good that they didn't like try to throw it so they could get Nora out. That would have been bad.
I think Jason literally can make it very far in this game. He showed great leadership. Elizabeth too in this immunity challenge. Jason was so freaking good under pressure. He led that tribe. I was like, okay, Jason, I think, is gaining some more social capital back. He is having his inroads after his little bit of paranoia at the beginning of the game. So I feel like Jason can make it pretty far after being an almost first boot off of their tribe. And so, like, I'm excited to see what Jason has to offer. I think he can be a very, very good player. I think someone like Nora or Karishma, who are sort of like potentially could be GOATs of the season, if they make it to the merge, then they probably can make final three if people are wanting an easier final three route. So hopefully you vote out the deadweight soon, but you want to keep them around because they're probably easy to win against.
Yeah, I think both Jason and Elizabeth, it was like no one thought it was Elizabeth's fault that they lost because they came from so far behind. Jason obviously did great by like leading his tribe to victory. So I think it's good for both of them because they were both heroes. And even though one tribe lost, they both still got to like remain heroes almost. So, yeah.
Yeah, I am very excited. Tribe swap next week. It's going to be exciting. I am interested to see this potential fallout between the Orange tribe.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that. I'm really interested to see who ends up on tribes together because there are some personalities that I can see just like oil and water. So it'll be interesting to see what the Orange tribe makes of Nora, the people who get swapped on with her. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Leave a comment down below. Do you think voting out Chelsea was the best move or the wrong move in this situation? Are you excited for the tribe swap next week? Also let us know. But in the meantime, we will see you all next week with a brand new recap episode.
Bye.